I spent the morning working in this shed. We packed lemons and grade them, and the wife was packing, and the doorway we could see smoke over the back of the mountain. And while we weren't greatly concerned because it was a fair way away and the wind wasn't blowing towards us, after lunch we noticed that the smoke had moved further south.
And it was extremely hot. And after lunch I went outside and you could see the smoke coming over the Sugarloaf. But by that time we were aware that the fires were at Whittlesea.
And I started filling up buckets of water, taking them out the front. Found a big heavy Hessian chook bag, started dipping that in. Started walking around the boundaries of the two homes because we'd started to get cold ember fallout. We were getting large spirals of bark falling down. They're sort of about that long ends of branches.
Quite cold. There was no heat in them, but they were falling, and so we assumed it was a fairly hot fire to be lifting embers as big and heavy as what was landing round here.
On the internet it said there'd been spot fires over on Hildebrand Road, so just keeping an eye out for spot fires.
Had a phone call from Steve late in the afternoon, just checking up on the fires. So went out and saw the smoke from Kilmore fires and Wallen, and then just told him I could see smoke, and he says, "Is everything okay?" And I said, "Yes."
And by mid-afternoon we realised that the fire was getting quite close to us, and we started to make preparations to fight the fire. We had our firefighting equipment outside the house ready, and we had buckets and hoses.
Black Saturday for me started at the Hurstbridge Football Club. I was checking the CFA website continuously, just seeing if there was any small fires around. There happened to be a small one on the road that we live on, so I decided to come home instead of going to work. I got to this very point here, where there were police blocks already set up. I spoke to the police. They said, "Make sure you have your fire plan in place." I said, "Yep, no problems." Not a drama in the world.
So David came home in his car, and I said to him, "You better grab a bag too and start wandering around with me."
Half an hour later, Steve called back and said there was a spot fire at Linda's, so I went to Linda's.
Before he went off, I sort of was starting to get a bit worried then. I said, "Well, you better make sure that you come back."
Then we started to get a little bit concerned, and we went up in the sheds to look about moving machinery and such out of the sheds, but there were no batteries in the tractors we wanted to move, so we had to leave them. And
after circling the property a couple of times with the Hessian mats, looking for spot fires to put out, I ended up coming up here with Uncle Dave just to get a bit more of a clearer view. What we did was we were just standing here looking over at the mountain, just to the right. At the bottom of the mountain going up, we could see a little bit of smoke coming up. Then the smoke became more and more. There was just a lot more smoke, and the more smoke that there was, and we could hear it creating its own thunderstorm out there. The noise was incredible coming towards us. You could hear it. We knew that we'd come to the conclusion, myself and Uncle Dave, that we had a bit of a fight on our hands.
Arrived at Linda's place, and where the spot fire started, and then I turned up. There was about 5 or 6 CFA trucks here, had it under control. Spoke to Peter Jenkinson. He said everything's good. Then I saw Linda. Linda said that the fire pump wasn't working, so I said I would call back as soon as possible to get the pump going. And as you can see, that's where the spot fire started at Linda's, and they got it out, and then by the time we got home, it was coming.
By that time, the fire had jumped quite a bit further south. We had heard news that there was going to be a change to a southwesterly later in the day.
So I grabbed my phone to ring 000, and you couldn't get through to anything. It was just everything was engaged.
Quarter of an hour after it changed, I could see the fire coming over the hills to our west, and then we could see then that eventually the fires would come to us. We weren't really concerned because we had quite a big area of cleared land, orchard and mown grass between us and the fires.
On the way down, I had to make the decision whether to stay or whether to leave, and decided to stay in the end. I put the dog in the car, told Mum to jump in the car, let's go. She said no, and so anyway, because she didn't come, we decided to stay and help out. So parked the car here, jumped out of the car.
Arrived back home from Linda's place. Got my son David and Vicky to move the cars out of the shed. We got Christmas decorations on the roof over the cars. Couldn't get it off the roof.
Anything that was easy to catch on fire, so we're just trying to do whatever we can. We didn't have a lot of water or stuff set up around our house. It was mainly up at Nan and Pop's. By this time it was getting really windy. Everybody's pretty much yelling at each other. There was a bit of panic going on.
But then there was like this really thick, it was just like a nuclear bomb rushing towards us, and it was like 20 jumbo jets, the noise of it was just roaring.
We looked at that and saw that was quite high, 100 plus feet high, this red front, so we realised there was nothing we could do to fight that.
And both David and I could hear lightning. You'd hear lightning just cracking, and it was just rushing at you at 100 miles an hour.
That sort of alerted us to something different was happening, and that roar just increased in sound and got louder and louder. And
you just sort of, at that point, you had like 30 seconds to make a decision as what you were going to do.
Just as I was about to leave, I forgot I left our dog Honey in the car, so came back, ran back, grabbed the dog out of the car, and then we bolted up to the pool.
We were standing out the front, and once we saw what was coming at us at 100 miles an hour, we knew there was, even though we had the firefighting equipment out the front, you could just see that what was coming, that it wouldn't have mattered what you had, there was just absolutely nothing that anyone could do.
So that was probably where panic really started to set in, when it was coming.
And luckily I still had my bag in my hand. I didn't probably even realise, I just didn't drop the bag, thank goodness. I still had the bag in my hand and flew into the pool.
I went inside to have a drink, and while I was inside, my son came into me and said, I think you better fill the bath up and put towels in the bath, which I started to do.
Didn't find Mum in the pool. I said, where's Mum? Someone said, she's inside. So I went inside. Mum's inside getting her books and that.
Came to the door and shouted to me, get in the pool now, and the way he spoke, I knew that things had taken a turn for the worse and that I had to hurry. So I had my handbag and I had a couple of ledger books for our finances that I was going to try and save, because my accountant always said to me, don't ever lose these, you'll be in big trouble if you do. So I decided I'd try and take them with me.
And then Mum Went outside, David was still hosing down the house.
Even though I was just thinking, it's not going to do much. We're saying, don't worry about doing that.
And I just said to David, we've got to go. And the intense heat coming straight up the lemon trees, sucking the moisture out of them, and it was just too intense. We couldn't do anything with it. And I said it was just time, we've got to leave it, we've got to get in the pool.
And we only had just enough time to get into the pool.
Yeah, there were 6 of us and 2 dogs. And
I was going to stay at the shallow end, and I thought, no, if we start getting into trouble, we'll probably drown each other.
And my daughter took me down to the deep end of the pool, and we hung on to the railing.
And I just put my knee up on the lower rung because I could just keep my head out of the water. Just put my arm sort of around her and use the other hand and just kept, for the hour that we were in there, just kept scooping water.
And we put a wet hessian bag over our heads. I looked around and I could see my husband and my son-in-law, and they never had any covering over their heads.
So they had to spend as much time as they could under the water.
Getting quite burnt on their hair and their eyes and their eyelashes. And by that time the wind and the heat and the smoke was extreme. My son got out of the pool and raced back into the house to get the dog.
we saw some spot fires starting against the house, and me and David jumped out the pool and went over to try and put them out, but we had to give that away and return to the pool almost immediately.
The moment I got into the pool, I could feel the heat of the flames coming over our head.
Every time I looked up, there was flames, tin flying, wood flying over.
And there was a little niche in the pool where the pump pipe went into. And I put them in there hoping they'd be okay. But during the time we were in the pool, they caught on fire, and my son-in-law had to drag them down into the water.
And the whole time there was just flames on top of us, burning embers in the pool, bits of burning logs in the pool which would be floating around. And
I ended up getting hit by a bit of wood and burn on the back of the neck. Not too bad.
And some of it was alight, and that was a bit scary because when you looked around there was floating debris sort of floating around at the back of your neck, and we kept on splashing the water to try and keep it away from us.
Thinking, oh, any minute we're going to get decapitated with a bit of tin's just going to come slicing through the pool and just chop one of us in half. And that was another reason I wanted to stay right up against this wall here, really tight against the wall, because it was sort of coming from this direction, and hoping that things would either hit the concrete wall or we'd be in close enough that it would just go over the top of us.
And we just kept on bobbing under the water and taking breaths and holding our breath for as long as we could.
My grandson did a good job. He did a bit of cheerleading and gave us encouragement, and yeah.
In the respect that he kept us going, he kept on shouting out, "Come on, Nan, come on, Pop."
You know, we can do it, we're over the worst of it, we're going to be all right. And he just kept going whenever he could.
Just being a voice and letting everyone know that we were all still alive, and that's all that mattered at the end of the day, but it got pretty tough.
There's sort of very little we could do, except it got that hot that we just had to really stay underwater as long as possible. And
We felt that when we took a breath we never got any air, so it was very, very hot in our throats.
Like myself, in a pretty bad way, but she was saying to me, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And there was just sort of nothing you could say or do.
for that little while it seemed pretty desperate, really.
Probably about 3 times you'd stick your head out of the water and you couldn't breathe.
And we really thought that might be the end of us.
And then I just thought, well, this is how I'm going to die. And then I thought, I can't suck the hot in, so I'd prefer just to go under the water and just suck the cool water in and drown.
With the next breath we got a little breath, and after that we were okay.
And then when it was all over and we all came up the shallow end, and we were sort of we couldn't believe it. We were just like laughing, I think. We couldn't believe that we were all alive, and we're sort of sitting down in the water all hugging each other like crazy, and I sort of thought, no, I don't want her to get upset, and I said to her, you know, after all we've been through, you're not allowed to get upset now, because if you have a heart attack on me now, I'll kill you.
It was still too smoky to get out, still too dangerous. So we just stayed in, stayed huddled, had a bit of a chat.
Eventually the heat died down and we could all leave the pool.
And then I found there was an old towel floating in the pool, which must have been there, but because it was so thick with smoke and embers and fire, the guys couldn't find it to use it, but grabbed that and
went and sat on the track over there.
Just laid the towel down on the track there, and I had hold of honey as well.
Which was the only bit of land that wasn't black with ashes, and you could sit down on that, and we
Just seeing what was around, which there wasn't much left to see.
everything had been burnt. The ground was just black earth, nothing. There was nothing basically left at all.
By that time my house had burnt down. The trees at the side of the pool were alight, they were still burning. The cool store was gone, everything was gone.
Looked up in the sky and there were helicopters coming from everywhere. And so we sort of indicated that we were all okay, all alive, but they were just doing flyovers and probably just checking more than anything. Decided to give out a few cooees, see if we could make contact, direct contact, and we did.
Heard a vehicle going round the road, and my grandson David went down, and it was the next door neighbour. He had a vehicle still going.
Like a knight in shining armour in his four-wheel drive, came flying up. He jumped around all the trees and everything, and he came flying up here and put the girls in the front and all the guys in the back of the tray, and he took us all the way back to Brown's, and everyone was just having a bit of the girls were all having a bit of a cry and a hug, and yeah, couldn't believe what we'd all just been through.
And I mean, even when I was at Brown's, I was still throwing up just from all the stuff that I'd inhaled. And
We had a drink and something to eat, and then we were taken up to another neighbour's property that he had more room, and we spent the night there.
Steve got home from Yarrawonga when he got through. I borrowed his car because I had to take David Nelson and Dad down to the doctors because their eyes were pretty bad. Got down there. Felt like it took us 2 hours to get down there because I couldn't see a thing. Didn't sort of hit until later that everything was gone.
at the end of the day, we were lucky, I guess, to get over to the neighbours as quickly as we did, and we spent the night at Steve Uden's place. And
of course, there was no power was out, so there was no water to. Because all the houses up here run on pumps to supply pressure, and so you couldn't have a shower or anything. So everyone was pretty dirty and.
We all just climbed into beds. No one had showers or anything. It was just, I felt so sorry for poor Kerry's house. She's got a brand new house and all these filthy, dirty people. And piling into her house and all into her, we're trying to throw towels on the carpets where we had to walk to get into the beds, and we're all covered in ash and soot, and everyone was just so exhausted, and they were just ready to go to bed.
Didn't get much sleep at all that night, because the whole mountain was still burning a bit with all the fires still going. And then we just stayed there for a week or so, pretty covered in smoke and crap everywhere all over us. We were pretty dirty, the whole family.
possibly a little bit of trauma started setting in later on that night, because I think the hardest part was not knowing how my really close friends were, knowing that they were home. There was just a lot of local people that unaccounted for, but we just didn't know, and the not knowing part hurt, and it would have hurt for the people that weren't even involved in the fires, just waiting to hear about their family and friends.
That night I rang my daughters and asked them to come up the next day, and they came up and we came back to the farm and had a look at everything, and we had to go up and look for our cattle, which were all destroyed.
Dad and I went up in the car to check Malibu, and yeah, he wasn't in a very good way. And
Seen one of the daughter's horses that it was still alive, but it had been burnt and it had to be put down. And
We're very lucky that the pool wasn't full of water. If the pool was full of water, our heads probably would have fried off, or we would have had to drown at the end of the day.
Just all the help from the relief centres and everything was just amazing. And to see some people after the next day was just amazing.
So consequently, I spent the next 3 or 4 weeks after that drawing out pages of these books to try and keep them.
we'll rebuild. It's still home, even though there's nothing here. It's still home. Yeah.
It is going to take us a long time to rebuild, but Strathewen is home, and we are going to definitely rebuild here because it's too nice of a place to go away from.
We've been running the farm here now for about 54 years, so there's really 54 years of work and memories and everything all sort of gone in an hour.
No matter how bad it looks, this is home.
And we're going to have a nice house, so everyone will be home all together again. And I'm looking forward for that day. It might take a while, but we're going to do it. And the sooner the better, I hope.